working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's program. At least 100,000 jeepney drivers and operators across the country began their strike today. At least 4 people have died and nearly 41,000 people were evacuated in Malaysia after floodwaters caused by unusual torrential rains lasting days swept through several states. President Marcos Jr. and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim have agreed to hold in-depth discussions on the Philippines and Malaysia's territorial dispute over Sabah. After a series of rapid passes and powerful jumps, Irene Tan slams the ball into a trampoline-like rebounder to score a point. Singapore has only ever produced a few world champions, but the city-state is ranked number 1 in women's chukball, a little-known sport similar to handball. First in our news, at least 100,000 jeepney drivers and operators across the country began their strike today. The pinagkaisang samahan ng mga tsuper at operator nationwide, President Modi Floranda, said the protest will be held in Metro Manila, Southern Tagalog, Calabarzon, Bicol, Cebu, Davao, Iloilo, Ilocos Region, Bulacan, and Baguio City. Meanwhile, Transportation Undersecretary for Railways, Cesar Chavez, said that railway lines that are ready to extend their trips include the Philippine National Railways, the Metro Rail Transit or MRT3, and the Light Rail Transit Lines 1 and 2. It will extend its operation by adding 14 trips today, making the total trips to 60 from 46. It'll also add 1 trip from Tutuban Station and extend its trip departing at 8:46 p.m. from 7:46 p.m. Chavez said the MRT3, though in normal operation, is ready to extend its operation for the last trip from North Avenue Station to 10 p.m. from 9:30 p.m. and from Taft Avenue Station to 10:41 p.m. from 10:11 when necessary. Light Rail Manila Corporation or LRMC spokesperson Jacqueline Gorospe assured the DOTR through Chavez that the LRMC is prepared to ensure service and manpower availability for LRT1. The LRMC is the contract operator of the LRT1. The LRT2's regular trip from Recto Station is until 9:30 tonight if extended. The last trip will be until 10 p.m. In other news, a magnitude 5.3 earthquake jolted Davao de Oro early today, according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology. The tectonic quake struck 22 kilometers southeast of the municipality of New Bataan at 4:43 this morning. It was 2 kilometers deep. Intensity 4 was felt in New Bataan, Macco, and Mawab, Davao de Oro, while intensity 3 was reported in Nabunturan, Davao de Oro. Intensity 2 was felt in Laak, Davao de Oro, and intensity 1 in Bislig City, Surigao del Sur. PHIVOLCS also logged the following instrumental intensities: intensity 4 in Nabunturan, Davao de Oro, intensity 2, Davao City, Davao del Sur. PHIVOLCS meanwhile said both aftershocks and damage are possible from the magnitude 5.3 quake. In other news, at least 4 people have died. Nearly 41,000 were evacuated in Malaysia after floodwaters caused by unusual torrential rains lasting days swept through several states, according to officials. Take a look.
Banjir itu berlaku, saya masih ada kat rumah. Tapi pukul 4 pagi tu saya bangun, air masih belum melimpah ke darat. Masih kat sungai lagi. Dalam pukul 7 lebih nak pergi ke pukul 9-10 tu air dah mula masuk lah. Sampai ke paras pinggang dia dalam rumah. Jadi saya sempat.
Lepas tu tak boleh lalu sebab jalan utama tu dah naik air. Jadi kita orang tunggu lama tapi air makin naik, so kita orang lalu jalan lain lah, jalan jauh. Dari jalan jauh tu petang tu baru dapat balik. Lama jugalah.
Now, local reports and social media posts showed images of flooded roads, submerged cars, waterlogged homes, and rows of shops closed in the affected areas, mainly in the southern state of Johor near neighboring Singapore. The rains have continued unabated, hampering relief efforts. Police said at least 4 people have died since Wednesday, including a man whose car was swept away by floodwaters and an elderly couple who drowned. Nearly 41,000 people from 6 states, although mostly from Johor, have been evacuated to schools and community centers where food, water, and clothes were provided. The latest fatality was a 68-year-old woman who drowned near her flooded house after she left an evacuation center in Segama Town in Johor. The meteorological department has warned that the rain could go on until April. In tonight's other news, President Marcos Jr. and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim have agreed to hold in-depth discussions on the Philippines and Malaysia's territorial dispute over Sabah. Marcos said the two nations' top foreign diplomats would talk over this. Take a look.
Pag-usapan din namin ang issue ng Sabah. Yun, alam nyo naman, meron tayong claim dyan sa Sabah na sinasabi natin na nasa Pilipinas yan. Ay ngayon, sila ang administrator ng Sabah. Kaya sabi namin, kailangan natin pag-usapan ng masinsinan yan. Yung mga foreign affairs secretary namin ay mag-uusap tungkol dyan kung anong pwede pa natin gawin.
Now, in 2022, the French court ordered Malaysia to pay $14.9 billion to the heirs of the Sulu Sultanate for breach of an international private lease agreement. The court granted the demand of compensation after Malaysia stopped paying the annual session money of about 65,700 pesos to the Sultanate heirs following the 2013 armed invasion of militants allegedly sent by Sabah claimant heir Jamalul Kiram III. Under the Treaty of Paris in 1898, Spain sold the Philippines to the U.S. The treaty boundaries allegedly did not include Sabah. The late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, in a speech in 2013, recalled that former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo issued guidelines on matters pertaining to Sabah in 2008, requiring any official activity related to Sabah to have clearance from the Department of Foreign Affairs. In 2009, Santiago said Arroyo signed the new law on the archipelagic baselines of the Philippines, which was upheld in 2011 by the Supreme Court, and categorically stated that the Philippines retains its claim on Sabah. A fire destroyed 2,000 shelters at a Rohingya refugee camp in southeastern Bangladesh, leaving around 12,000 people homeless. Take a look. Now, the fire broke out at around 2:45 p.m. at Camp Number 11 in Kutupalong, one of the world's largest refugee settlements, and rapidly engulfed the bamboo and tarpaulin shelters. At least 35 mosques, 21 learning centers for the refugees were also destroyed, though there were no reports of any injuries or deaths. The blaze was brought under control in less than 3 hours. Now, it wasn't clear how the fire started. The authorities have ordered an investigation. Fires are common in the camps where nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees live in squalid conditions. Most of them fled a military crackdown in Myanmar's Rakhine State in 2017 and took refuge in Bangladesh. A Bangladesh Defense Ministry report last month said that between January 2021 and December 2022, there were 222 fire incidents in the Rohingya camps, including 60 cases of arson in March 2021. In what was the worst blaze in the Rohingya camps, at least 15 people were killed and some 50,000 were displaced after a fire engulfed an entire block in a settlement. Now, dozens of houses have been destroyed after a fuel storage depot fire in Jakarta left at least 18 people dead, including 2 children. Take a look.
Yang saya lihat, Pak, pada awalnya ini asap, Pak, dari perapatan itu ke kanan, terus yang arah ke kiri, sono ke utara. Nah, pas itu baru Pak, kira-kira 10 menit baru tuh apinya meledak. Nah, api itu meledak ke atas, kejatuhan ke rumahnya masyarakat.
Pada waktu itu saya naik ke lantai 3, karena lantai 3. Ketika saya lihat itu api membumbung tinggi, seolah-olah sudah dekat sampai ke pasar kaget. Kemudian ketika bau itu menyengat, kayak seperti ada bocoran gas atau minyak. Lalu kita berdiri, langsung kita keluar, turun, kita mengeksodus, melarikan diri, menyelamatkan diri sampai ke Sukapura. Begitu Sukapura juga penuh orang.
Now, officials are calling for an audit of all fuel facilities and infrastructures in Indonesia. Pertamina, which controls the majority of Indonesia's fuel and energy distribution, publicly apologized for the fire. 35 people were still being treated, with many suffering severe burns, while more than 1,300 people living in residential areas near the depot had to be evacuated. The death toll had risen by 1 during the day. National Police Chief Listio Sigit Prabowo said the fire happened while fuel that had just arrived from another refinery was being reloaded. Top officials have called for a probe into the fire's cause and an audit of Indonesia's energy facilities after several recent blazes. A massive blaze broke out in 2021 at the Balongan refinery in West Java, also owned by Pertamina and one of Indonesia's biggest such facilities. Now, that same depot saw fires in 2009 and again in 2014 when the flames spread to 40 houses nearby. No casualties were reported in either of those cases. Jakarta's acting governor, Hero Budi Hartono, said the government would pay for the treatment of the injured. A Malaysian court acquitted jailed former Prime Minister Najib Razak of a corruption charge, but he will continue to serve a 12-year prison term from another case. Take a look.
He found that there is no element of gratification. That means there was absolutely no element of corruption in Datuk Sri Najib's role in these charges, which we call the auditing charges. All right? Yes. He communicated to us, as you know, he can't give a press statement. Number one is that he is so relieved that the judge has made these findings because it is not merely an acquittal and discharge. You must see that it is beyond that.
I'm thankful for the decision of the court and for all the support that I've received, particularly from my family, my wife, my kids, my in-laws, my parents, my mom, and also all my very, very good friends who've stood by me throughout the last few years that we've been in court.
Now, High Court Judge Muhammad Zaini Mazlan said state prosecutors failed to provide sufficient evidence to prove their case that Najib tampered with an official audit report on scandal-racked State Fund 1MDB for his benefit. Najib's co-accused former 1MDB chief, Arul Kandasamy, was also acquitted. Both had previously pleaded not guilty and were released on a 500,000 ringgit bail each. The prosecution closed its case in September last year after calling more than a dozen witnesses, including Arul, to testify, according to local media. If convicted, they would have each had to face up to 20 years jail and a fine. Now, the audit case was among the multiple trials that Najib faces in relation to 1MDB, which became the focus of a scandal that spawned probes in Asia, the US, and Europe. He's now serving a 12-year prison sentence for a separate corruption conviction linked to 1MDB's former unit SRC International. President Marcos Jr. pushed for closer cooperation and collaboration with the cable and telecommunications industry to realize his administration's bid for complete digital transformation of government services. The president stressed the importance of working with cable and telecommunications sector as his administration pursues initiatives for the digitization of public services and better interconnectivity in remote areas.
And cable internet industry has been at the forefront of revolutionizing and modernizing our society and it has gone into every aspect of our daily life. It has not only survived and thrived in the digital age, but also served as an important platform that helped our people survive during calamities, during emergencies. This crucial role of your industry was highlighted and shown in its true importance during the recent COVID-19 pandemic. During these difficult times, you served as a communications conduit for food distribution, purchase and transport of essential commodities, the facilitation of health and telemedicine concerns in the rural areas, amongst others. As we all know, COVID changed everything. Everything now is done online, and we, unfortunately, in government, have fallen behind. As you hold this important Congress, I ask you to closely collaborate with the government in pursuing initiatives for the digitization of our services, the expansion of our MSMEs, and the establishment of information and communications technologies in remote areas in the country. If we are to sustain our soaring economy, we must help small to medium-scale industries in using digital platforms to improve their services and to connect with their consumers.
The High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said he is dismayed by the 27-year sentence handed down against Cambodian opposition figure Kem Sokha on charges of treason and conspiracy with a foreign power. Take a look.
Nearly 30% of those.
The High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, says today that he is dismayed by the 27-year sentence handed down against prominent Cambodian opposition figure Kem Sokha on charges of treason and conspiracy with a foreign power. He is to serve his sentence under house arrest. The High Commissioner is concerned as to the basis of such charges and the fairness of the conduct of his trial. We urge the government to promptly release Kem Sokha from confinement pending resolution, and to ensure that his human rights are fully respected, including his right to a fair trial in the course of further appeal, and his ability to participate fully in the conduct of political affairs. Deeply concerning that the royal government of Cambodia continues to suppress political opponents and independent media in the lead-up to elections in July. The High Commissioner calls on the authorities to foster an environment in which free elections can take place and to protect the civil and political rights of all.
Cambodia accused Western countries of political interference and arrogance after several governments condemned the 27-year prison sentence handed down to opposition leader Kem Sokha for treason. The 69-year-old co-founder of the Cambodia National Rescue Party was accused of hatching a secret plan in collusion with foreign entities to topple longtime Prime Minister Hun Sen. The U.S. characterized Friday's guilty verdict and sentence as a miscarriage of justice based on a fabricated conspiracy. The UN, European Union, France, Australia, and the UK also expressed concerns about the case and Cambodia's ailing democracy ahead of July polls. But Cambodia's foreign ministry dismissed the condemnation as prejudiced and hypocritical and denied there were political motives at play. Kem Sokha, who denies the charges against him, was immediately placed under house arrest and barred from speaking to people outside his family. He has 1 month to launch an appeal. His daughter Kem Monovicha said Saturday her parents' internet and phone services had been cut off. 2 months after Kem Sokha's arrest in 2017, Cambodia's Supreme Court dissolved the CNRP, once considered the sole viable opponent to the ruling Cambodian People's Party. And that paved the way for the CPP and Hun Sen to win all 125 parliamentary seats in 2018, turning the country into a one-party state. Scores of opposition figures were convicted of treason last year, and Hun Sen ordered the shutdown of one of the country's few remaining local independent media outlets last month. The Philippines can expect increased development cooperation with Ottawa as the Canadian government implements its 2.3 billion Canadian dollar Indo-Pacific strategy that seeks to position Canada as a reliable partner in the region. Take a look.
The privilege for me to represent Canada and lead our delegation here with MP Valdez. We're here to listen and learn how Canada can have even a greater relationship with the Philippines. We already have great people-to-people ties. What we want to make sure that we can respond and help work together on disaster response, on education, on health, and especially on climate change. So this is just our visit, how we can learn from each other, but we look forward to coming back as well.
Okay. So thank you, Minister. So MP Ritchie, we tried catching up with you back in Toronto, but I'm glad we were able to catch up. So
sure.
Please share with us your observations.
First of all, mabuhay everybody. I just wanted to say hello. It's been a wonderful experience. As Minister Sajjan said, we're really here to have dialogue and really understand how we can better help and support the Philippines in many different areas. And I'm really excited for what's to come.
Okay, thank you. So, Ambassador Hartland.
Yes. We've used this visit, of the minister's visit with our member of parliament to really spawn a bit of a catalyst. There's so much more that we're going to do together to explore these opportunities, and we're really looking forward to following up on these in the very, very near future. We have to roll up our sleeves as we have a lot of good work to do together.
Okay, Asik Rafi, could you also share with us your takeaways from today's?
Good afternoon. We're very happy to have our visitors here today. So I'm looking forward for a very this visit will bear fruit, hopefully. So we'll work closely with the ambassador through DFA and of course through the ministry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. And
salamat.
Okay, so we look forward to visiting. So Asik, we're going to visit them in Canada, right?
That's right.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
And safe journeys back home. Okay.
Now, Canadian Minister of International Development Harjit Sajjan, who met with Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo on March 3, said that Ottawa will strengthen collaboration with the country in building capacity, especially in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, combating illegal fishing, food security, agriculture, and health. During the meeting with Manalo, the officials also discussed how Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy can complement the two states' deepening bilateral ties. Manalo said they explored ways to promote a rules-based order in the South China Sea. Canada and the Philippines are set to mark 75 years since the establishment of their diplomatic relation in 2024. At present, Canada's official development assistance to the country has already reached 1 billion Canadian dollars, approximately 40 billion pesos since 1986. In other news, 3 communist terrorist group members were neutralized in an encounter with the military in Senator Ninoy Aquino, Sultan Kudarat, March 2. Take a look. Now, the Joint Task Force Central Commander Major General Alex Riliera said the troops of the 7th Infantry Battalion under Lieutenant Colonel Frederick Chicote acted on a report of the presence of fully armed men conducting foraging activities at Sitio Isuco, Barangay Banali. Senator Ninoy Aquino, Thursday noon, upon arrival at the area, operating troops engaged in an armed confrontation with 10 communist terrorist group members led by Eusebio Cranzo Tabunaway, aka Ben Bricks, a member of the Regional Tax Implementing Group or RTIG of the Far South Mindanao region. The firefight resulted in the deaths of 3 CTG members and the recovery of 3 M16 rifles, 1 M653 rifle, 13 long magazines, 330 rounds of 5.56 millimeter ammunition, 2 hand grenades, 5 bandoliers, 1 commercial radio, 4 backpacks, assorted foodstuff and personal belongings, and propaganda materials. The recovered cadavers of the slain communist terrorists were turned over to the local police for identification and post-mortem investigation. Operating troops are in pursuit of the fleeing enemies. Thousands of U.S. soldiers joined Thai and South Korean troops on a beach in Thailand for one of the largest annual military exercises in Asia. Now in its 42nd year, Cobra Gold brings thousands of forces from the U.S., Thailand, and other countries together for days of training. Take a look.
Thai, U.S., and South Korea, we had a good cooperation in the region. If we have the tension in the region. We have know each other and can cooperation with the forces. We can fight with the problem and the uncertainty situation.
The objective of this training is for us to come together as one team to strengthen our skills and train together across these complex operations. Amphibious exercises are one of the most complex operations that we can execute, and so training them together as a team makes all of us stronger as a partner nations force. You know, this is the biggest Cobra Gold we've had since 2020 due to the past couple years with the COVID pandemic. So this is the first time since 2020 that we have been able to have a Cobra Gold of this scale, this magnitude, and it's just a great opportunity for us to train alongside our partners, friends, and allies here in the Kingdom of Thailand.
Washington has sought to strengthen military alliances in the region in the face of an assertive China. American, Thai, and South Korean soldiers launched a joint amphibious operation near a Navy base in the east of the country, in which jet fighters screamed overhead and tanks rumbled over the sand. Personnel from Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan also took part in the exercises, which span air, land, and sea and feature a jungle survival course. With around 6,000 members, the U.S. delegation was more than 4 times the size of the contingent sent in 2022. Last month, the U.S. and the Philippines also agreed to resume joint patrols in the disputed South China Sea and struck a deal to give U.S. troops access to 4 more military bases in the Philippines. Seoul and Washington have recently bolstered joint military drills following a year of sanctions busting weapons tests by North Korea, infuriating Pyongyang, which sees such joint exercises as rehearsals for invasion. After a series of rapid passes and powerful jumps, Irene Tan slams the ball into a trampoline-like rebounder to score a point. Singapore has only ever produced a few world champions, but the city-state is ranked number 1 in women's chukball, a little-known sport similar to handball. Let's take a look.
First and foremost, chukball is a non-contact sport. Being non-contact itself does give people a question mark on, how is it even competitive? Yeah, I think chukball really revolves around being technical, about the gameplay as well as your technique. I think it goes down to the perseverance as well as the passion from the players. Not just me, but the team as a whole, working towards and always believing that they are able to reach the goal.
Certain sports where height is an advantage, I think chukball is good for anyone of any height and any skills, as it can be developed.
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.